Hello all, and welcome to Astro Wheel of Fortune. My name is Vlada and I read tarot, and today I'm doing a reading on the Hierophant as part of my series Tarot by Tarot, where I do a reading on each of the major arcana cards and see the information that comes out. This series has been so interesting, so fascinating, and I just can't wait to see what the Hierophant has to say, especially because if you watched my Emperor reading, the Hierophant was like really eager. I feel like the Hierophant's energy was eager to speak about itself. So I do feel like I'm really excited to delve in and see. As you know as well, if you have been watching this series, I am using this book to refer to from time to time. Not always, but there are some very interesting things within this book about tarot and its symbolism, and this is actually the book that just inspired me to do these readings overall. So the Tarot History, Symbolism and Divination by Robert M. Place is the book, but we're going to get into the reading. Let's get into it. I feel like the Hierophant has a lot to say to us today. So the Hierophant. So I just want to preface this with what I felt in the Emperor reading and how the Hierophant energy wanted to come out in the Emperor reading. The Hierophant was kind of mentioning how, again, I will have to mention the High Priestess, the Empress, and the Emperor within this context, but the Hierophant was talking about how the High Priestess is the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding of life and life's mysteries through the internal individual perspective of a human being. So each human being has their own intricate, mysterious way of experiencing life that no other person could possibly ever experience. Like, you are this one person, another person will never be able to experience the mysteries, the knowledge, the wisdom that you experience in exactly the same way. It cannot be replicated. Whereas the Hierophant is more of the collective, how we agree that wisdom, knowledge, and morality is experienced. Yes, we won't ever understand the exactness of what we're experiencing individually, but what is it that we can actually agree on? And what are the teachings that we can agree on from the perspective of the collective? And so at the time that the Rider-Waite-Smith deck was being created, that would have been Christianity, and that's why the Pope is depicted on the card. You know, Christianity dictated what was morally right, what was morally correct. Did it actually mean that it was morally right or correct? We don't know, you know, like who's to say, right? But that's what the collective decided at the time. The people in power decided at the time. So if we were to look at the Emperor and the Empress, the Emperor and the Empress are the people in authority that decided to put the Hierophant, the Pope, into the position of morality. So if the Empress and the Emperor represent authority in different expressions of itself, the Hierophant represents morality. So what is higher than authority? It's morality. So I just thought that was very interesting. And I just wanted to read out from the book before we proceed. So it says here, the word Hierophant is Greek for high priest. So, you know, we've got high priest and high priestess, and refers to the priest who guided the initiation into the illusion mysteries. Although Waite chose the occult name, the figure on the card is clearly the Pope, as we already said. I wanted to also look at the fact that in the book it says the Hierophant represents the exoteric aspects of religion versus the esoteric represented by the Papess, or the High Priestess. He represents moral judgment, determination of what is right and what is wrong. When used in divination, notice if he's blessing another card in a spread. So the Hierophant is the card of morality. It does not mean that the Pope that is represented on the card is the point of morality of what is right or wrong. But as a symbol, the Hierophant is the card of morality as decided by the collective. So the High Priestess can dispute the Hierophant, really, if we are looking at that energy. Although the collective trumps, just like in the tarot, as a playing game, the Hierophant trumps the High Priestess. The collective's idea of morality will trump or have more power. Have more power over an individual's understanding of morality. If the Hierophant is a very strong sense of right and wrong, the High Priestess is the gray area. The High Priestess is, there's no right or wrong. And again, kind of reminds me of the Justice card then as well. But the Hierophant really is standing out as, what do we take away from religion, divination, esoterics, and how do we push it out into the external to make it make sense, basically? The Hierophant, although the High Priestess has so much to say about how this mystery cannot be understood and cannot be figured out, with the help of the Empress and the Emperor, the High Priestess comes to some sort of a conclusion and has some sort of rules over these mysteries. So that's kind of where we're starting off with the Hierophant. But of course, that's just something that I've channeled in other readings as we were doing the cards. But yeah, if the High Priestess is this internal mystery and knowledge that we experience on very individual level, that nobody can get into our head, nobody can get into our being and experience it the same way, the Hierophant is the overall authority over our morals. So, if the Emperor represents authority over us as on a physical plane, like authority over us from a point of view of wealth or power, the Hierophant tries to, or the Hierophant energy is when the collective appoints an energy or appoints an institution to have authority over our morality. But of course, that is challenged then in the Lover's card when we get there. But because the Lover's card represents desire and attraction, and how no morals in the world can stop a person from exploring their own desires. I mean, it is possible to stop certain elements of it, but really we are driven by our desires, and that's where we will be talking about the Lover's card, which will be next. So our desires and our attraction to things outside of our morality. So no matter what we're told is wrong or right, or no matter what the collective decides is wrong or right, there will always be outlying individuals who will follow their own desire and their own attraction to something outside of those morals, and who's to say that those morals are not outdated as well. So there is that kind of energy to the Hierophant. So let's start getting the reading ready for the Hierophant. What does the Hierophant want to say? What does the Hierophant want to say? We've got the 8 of Swords. Interesting, because again, it's like morals, right and wrong, and how that can become our own internal prison. The Hierophant energy, it's not just about, coming up in a reading and saying this is right or this is wrong, this is morally correct, giving its blessing to something. But the Hierophant also likes to highlight to us that our own morality, our own sense of morals can become our own internal prison in our head. How we can imprison ourselves with our morals and our sense of what is right or wrong if we stick to that morality too rigidly and we don't allow it to evolve, we don't allow it to expand. We can trap ourselves in our own mind, and therefore the Hierophant can very quickly become something that is an agent of thought and mind rather than the agent of wisdom and spirituality. It can claim to be full of wisdom and spiritual knowledge. The Hierophant can claim to be a source, or the Hierophant can claim to have a connection to the source in terms of spirituality. But if it is too rigid, and if this code of conduct or morality that is too set in its ways, not willing to evolve, it becomes an agent of its own paranoia or its own thought patterns. It's kind of like if you believe something is right or wrong, right? And you believe it for a time, but whenever it gets challenged, you know, your sense of right or wrong or your sense of morality, you say to yourself, no, I'm not going to allow myself to be challenged. I'm just going to stick with this code. I'm just going to stick with this idea of what is right and what is wrong. And I will never, ever question it. I've decided this is right and this is wrong, and I'm going to keep that for the rest of my life. I'm going to have that understanding and that idea of what is right and what is wrong for the rest of my life, and I will never sway from it. That can actually become your own personal prison. Because in order for morality to be effective, it needs to evolve. And it needs to move naturally with the external. Sometimes when the collective decides, because there is an energy of like the collective almost fooling itself. Sometimes we can decide as a collective that something is right and wrong in a moral sense, to the point where we're so rigid in it because we've decided as the collective. This is something that was decided as the collective, that this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do. That we forget that we as the collective also need to evolve and change. Just because the collective decided, just because the majority decided that something is right or wrong. And that brings me back to the High Priestess. The same message came out with the High Priestess of just because the majority decided something is just or fair, or something is right or something is wrong, that doesn't mean that it's true. And while we need to, as a collective, to make these decisions on what's right, what's morally correct, what's morally wrong, it's a really important part of our exercise as the collective to make those decisions. We cannot stay too rigid in those energies because we imprison ourselves when we do. Or we allow these institutions to imprison us. And like this is really standing out to me because it kind of reminds me of like organized religions or school systems that are very rigid in how they teach and what they teach. And, you know, the syllabus doesn't change. The curriculum of what we're being taught isn't changed. And so to reflect the natural progression and evolution of life, the natural progression and evolution of humanity. And that's where we could be trapping ourselves. But this can also work on the individual level. If you have a code of conduct or a sense of morality around something and you never allow yourself to be challenged on it and you never challenge yourself on it and you're stubborn about it. And that makes me think of the Hierophant being ruled by Taurus energy. And I think there's no coincidence that it's ruled by Taurus energy because Taurus energy likes to stick to tradition. Traditionally, this was wrong. Traditionally, this was right. And so it makes sense to continue going by that tradition. It makes sense to continue moving by that tradition. But does it? So, because the Hierophant does talk about traditions as well. And so the Hierophant does come out. The Hierophant energy wants to remind that tradition is something that is important and needs to be respected. And moral codes of conduct need to be respected. Morality is something that needs to be respected. But morality is not a rigid thing. Morality is something that evolves and flows just like everything else does. Integrity is something that evolves and changes just like everything else does. Something that is right today won't be right in, 10 years' time. Something that is wrong today will not be wrong in 10 years' time. And the only way to know, just like with the High Priestess, both the High Priestess and the Hierophant are connected to a higher power, to spirituality, but for different reasons. The High Priestess is connected to spirituality in order to go on a personal journey of mystery. And the High Priestess is a keeper of secret, sacred knowledge that is very internal. It's very mysterious. It's very behind the scenes. The Hierophant is a keeper of knowledge of the collective. And the Hierophant needs to be able to tap into the energy of the collective effectively in order to have good morals and have a good understanding of what is right or what is wrong. If the Hierophant energy is too removed from the collective, then it shouldn't be the Hierophant. Like there's this, and so the Hierophant kind of, there's, again, we were talking about the imbalance of power in the Emperor card, and there's something very similar coming up with the Hierophant. If the Hierophant energy, whoever is the appointed Hierophant energy within the collective, if the Hierophant energy does not have the ability to connect to the collective in an effective way, if the Hierophant energy does not have the potential or ability to connect to understanding how the collective feels, then it should not be the Hierophant. It has no right to say what is morally right or what is morally wrong. Because again, that's an imbalance of power. And so the Hierophant energy can only say what's right or wrong if the power imbalance is not extreme. And whether that's within you or like within the collective, because we're looking at the Hierophant energy from many angles here. Page of Wands. You know what? Something that I'm getting in terms of morality and the Hierophant, and I was kind of channeling it a little bit. Really, the Hierophant should be a youthful energy. It's kind of like what I'm seeing is that the collective has lost. Morality has been dictated by tradition, which is, you know, that it's been dictated by tradition, but it's like we took it too literally. Because the Page of Wands is indicating there's a need for a youthful, optimistic outlook in terms of morality. And so the Hierophant wants us to remind us that a child could be a Hierophant too. So that it's not only, you know, a wise sage energy that can be the Hierophant. The Hierophant is someone who can relate to the collective and understand the collective, but at the same time have enough capacity to teach the collective. A Hierophant is not an authority figure. It can have some sort of authority over morality, but not in the way that Emperor is an authority. The Hierophant cannot punish. It's like I'm being referred to the Justice card. There's no punishment. There's no... A Hierophant structure, an institution, a Hierophant, a person that is represented by the Hierophant cannot punish. There's something like that, or should not be able to punish. It should only be able to mentor, to guide, and to express, this is what's morally correct. This is what's morally right. This is right and this is wrong. But this Hierophant energy needs to come from the collective. It cannot come from the ego. It has to come from the collective source. And so when we encounter the Hierophant in a reading, we need to remember that our sense of morality, are we basing it on our own ego? Are we taking that morality from structures and institutions that are overpowering people or overpowering the collective? Or are we truly connected to our morals? Are we truly connected to what's right or wrong through the source, through the collective? And there's a need to recognize that this mentor energy, this Hierophant energy, can be a Page of Wands, like a childlike energy, just as well as someone who's like a sage, wise, old person. That a young person's or a child's perception of morality and perception of right and wrong is just as important as the perception that adults or older people have of what is right or wrong. I'm kind of getting like, when was the last time that we asked children to tell us what they think is right and what is wrong? There's kind of like that energy to it. Because the whole point of overall morality and someone imposing this kind of, this is what we're agreeing morality is, this is what we're agreeing right or wrong is, but who's agreeing? Who is we? Who is the collective that's actually agreeing? And is it actually fair? And did we ask everyone in the collective, or is it a portion of the collective? Because then that's not true morality. It's a trap. True morality can only come from a place where every single person or energy involved in the collective has a say. That's the only way that it can be truly morally right or truly morally correct. And how do we reach that point? How do you reach that point as a person? You have to be very connected. You have to execute a certain level of empathy. 5 of Swords. Five of Swords. Ego. Power play. The whole point of the Hierophant card is that it challenges our need to wield power over people and wield power over their morality and their sense of right or wrong. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with appointing powers that tell us what's right or wrong, that tell us what morally is correct. And the Page of Wands also talks about curiosity and desire as well, because the Page of Wands is like that innocent desire of wanting something. Wands in general have very strong energy of desire, and again, it makes me think of no matter what we set our morals to be, there will always be a point in our evolution as humans where we will desire things beyond those morals, and we are going to act on those desires. And how do we adjust our morals and our sense of right and wrong accordingly with our desires? How do we change that? Because the Wheel of Fortune talks about change, about moving on, about evolution. It's ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the energy of expansion and evolution. Desire is a really important part of expansion and evolution, and we can't stop evolving and expanding. That's just something that we're always going to continue doing. So as a collective, when we expand and evolve, the natural process is desire first. Desire begins the process of evolution. I desire to evolve into a place where I haven't been before. Beyond my morals. But like, beyond my morals. In order to evolve, we must evolve beyond our morals through our desire. So sometimes, in order to evolve, we need to betray our morals, is what I'm getting. But we betray our old morals and we establish new morals in their place. And how do we do that effectively? And how do we do that without like harmful energy? So when the Hierophant energy comes out in a reading, it's reminding us that morals are important. Integrity is really important. A sense of right and wrong is really important. But are you stopping yourself from evolving? Or are we stopping ourselves as a collective from evolving by, sticking to our morals from the past for too long? And how long before these morals become a trap that we are in? Before these morals and the sense of what is right and what is wrong are just rules that are keeping us from evolving, from becoming new versions of ourselves. Yeah. Because the Three of Wands is like potential. So our morals are both two things. A moral compass is something that keeps us in check and connects us to spirituality and the divine, and connects us to that sense of community, our sense of the collective. If I have good morals, I am connected to the collective and I will not harm the collective. So the reason that we need morals as the collective, or the way that I'm picking up on this energy, is we need morals because morals help us as individuals maintain the collective and not harm the collective. But morals are kind of like, the way that I'm seeing it is like, morals is like old skin on a snake. It's like, if the snake doesn't shed that skin, that skin might start rotting on it, or, make that snake sick. So in order to evolve into the new version of ourselves, as a collective, let's say the collective is a snake, the snake must shed its old skin, its old morals, in order to evolve into something different and to fulfill its potential. But this can also pertain to the individual. So if you have a set of morals or a set of rules that you have for yourself, that you adhere to, that you believe, if I adhere to this, I am not harming the collective, I am not harming my community, if I'm adhering to these morals, do you know the point where it's time to adjust those morals? Because they're not so much helping you not harm the collective as they are keeping you in prison and keeping you from your potential. So another thing about morals can be used as a really useful tool to make a person into an upstanding pillar or upstanding element of the collective, upstanding citizen in society, in inverted commas. But morals can also be used to trap a person in their own mind and stop the person from fulfilling their full potential. And so morals can be deeply spiritual and make you feel so connected to the collective, to the point where you feel like you are one with the collective. Or it can remove you so far from the collective that the collective evolves beyond you, and you are stuck in these morals that are this old shedded skin of a snake. But the snake will continue moving forward. And that's the energy that I'm kind of picking up with the Hierophant. Because I'm kind of seeing two paths out of the Hierophant. If you're noticing, kind of like the way I laid out the cards, it feels like there's two paths, and morals, or a sense of what right is and wrong, can lead you into two different directions. Will you be in tune and aligned enough with the collective, in tune and aligned enough with the higher power and the source, in order to know when it's time to drop those morals, when it's time to realize, oh, this thing that we used to say is right, and this thing that we used to say is wrong, actually that's not true anymore. The thing that we used to say is right is actually wrong now, and the thing that we used to say is wrong is actually not really wrong anymore. It's being aligned enough to know when that switch happens. to feel it, to experience it, because that's just human evolution. And again, it brings me back to the High Priestess energy, where everything can be disproven. No matter your opinion, no matter your belief, no matter your morals, at some point in time they will be right, and at some point in time they will be wrong. Two completely contradictory things can be true at once, as the High Priestess was saying in her reading. But the Hierophant talks about, so with the Emperor we had, but something can be so right in the moment, and you need to make that decision when something is very right in the moment. And something can be very wrong in the moment, and you need to make that decision. The Hierophant talks about a period of time where something is right and something is wrong. And that agreement that the collective makes with itself, and therefore us individuals agree to the collective energy of this is right and this is wrong. And that is the consensus. But that consensus at some point is going to shift, to change. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. And, you know, I'm kind of getting with every new generation, morals must change. Oh, so that could be an interesting thing that the Hierophant is trying to highlight to us. With every new generation, our sense of morality and our sense of right and wrong needs to be changed and needs to be readjusted. And again, it's that feeling of like, when was the last time that we asked children what's right and what's wrong? And really, really listened and really paid attention. So yeah, the morality and the sense of right and wrong is really important from a point of view of tradition. Like the Hierophant can talk about tradition, because tradition allows us to track what happened in the past. But that's not the only way to create a sense of morality. That's not the only way to observe what is morally correct and what is morally wrong. And to fulfill our full potential, we must allow ourselves to step out of tradition, to rebel against tradition from time to time. So yeah, the Hierophant can come out in a reading in order to bless something in terms of morality, like this is morally correct, this is morally right. But the Hierophant, depending on the context, I feel, can also come out from a point of view of, are you allowing somebody else to dictate what's right and wrong? Or are you dictating something that's right or wrong by an old collective belief? Are you over relying on tradition and what you've been taught in order to differentiate what's right and wrong? Are you keeping yourself imprisoned in your ego because you're afraid to step out of the old version of morality? But I feel like the Hierophant is very strongly connected to the collective, and I feel like maybe that's something that we don't give it enough credit for. The Hierophant is really the expression of morality through an institution or one single defined thing that the collective decided to appoint as the symbol of morality. So again, at the time that the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot was being created, that would have been Christianity, and the Pope says what's right and what's wrong. But what is that? I feel like the question that the Hierophant wants us to ask, what is that in our modern day when we're looking at our appointed people who we say tell us what's morally right and what's morally wrong? Who are those people? Who are those institutions? Who are those things? And are we imprisoned by them, or do we have the freedom to evolve to our potential? Are we adjusting our morals as a collective as well? The Hierophant is like the central pillar connected to God and bringing the spirit down to earth. It's all about bringing the laws of the universe down to earth. And it's not like, because the way, if you look at the laws of the universe, down to earth. How do we make spiritual energy digestible through the collective? Well, what I'm picking up, the Hierophant is really highlighting that in order to have a healthy Hierophant energy, we have to have a healthy High Priestess energy. We have to be very comfortable in our own mystery, in our own journey of our own mysterious human experience that is very private and very introverted, in order for the collective to feel comfortable in their own, in the collective's spiritual existence and spiritual experience. In order to have a good spiritual experience as a collective, we need to have a good spiritual experience individually first, which is like, again, everything is a mirror. So it's a no-brainer that that is the energy. We need to be comfortable with the fact that we will never know some mysteries. We may never know if something is right or wrong. We may never know if something is morally correct. That's how we can get closest to good morals and good standing in terms of the collective, by accepting that sometimes we just won't know. So that's what I have for the Hierophant energy. That was very interesting again. Anyway, I really love these readings. They're really, really interesting to me. I'm just having a blast with them. I feel like I'm learning so much, and I hope you're enjoying this too. If you did like this reading, do like, subscribe, and comment with your feedback. If you can feedback to me what you thought, what your feelings on this are, you know, that's what really I'm interested in, like, starting conversations around this. If you want to tip me, I would really, really appreciate it. Of course, it's not expected, but if you'd like to tip me for this series, or just for the readings that you watch, like maybe watch pick a card readings, you can tip me down below below the video. It's a thanks button. It's like a love heart thanks button, or you can tip me out my PayPal. The link is down below. If you'd like a private reading, connect with me through my Etsy. The link is also down below. And if you'd like to see more pick a card readings by me, you can go to my Patreon. And my Patreon has a lot of pick-a cards and a lot of extra fun content. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!